There is tons of information out there on the internet about microgreens, growing microgreens for profit, running a microgreens business, and some of it is just garbage and not even true. If you've been wondering what this microgreens industry is really all about, I'm gonna talk to you in this video all about these hard truths that I've learned over the past few years. Some of these videos out there are promising a lot, and I just wanna bring this back to reality and let you guys know the real truth about growing microgreens for profit. Hi, I'm Donny Greens, and I've been growing microgreens commercially for over 6 years now, and despite all the struggles and hardships that come along with starting a business and running a business, learning to grow microgreens and starting the microgreens business has absolutely transformed my life in the greatest way possible. And now I have the ultimate privilege of teaching others how to grow their own microgreens at home and even start their own businesses. So I want to teach you some of the things that I wish I knew when I first started. That way you know what you're getting into as you start your microgreens journey. All right, so number one, while it's easy to get started, running a business is extremely difficult. For microgreens and running a microgreens business, it's easy to get started because you don't need a lot of space, you don't need a lot of time because the crops are just growing, you don't have to sit there watching them, and you also don't need a lot of money because it doesn't take much money to get this started either. And I actually just covered this in my last YouTube video, so feel free to go check that out above. Now, in turn with these limited resources that you need to get started, this business actually also has high profit margins. And this is why it's become so popular as a business model, because it actually works. Easy to get started, high profit margins moving forward. And now, even though I made a ton of mistakes when I first started growing, I was net positive in 9 months. So that $4,000 initial investment that I made into my business, I was already in the black or net positive after 9 months from there. I had all that money back. And then in my second year of business, I actually brought in $100,000 of revenue in only my second year. And this was my first time running a business fresh out of college at 23. So pretty cool stuff. Now, I'll also mention getting started for me was extremely easy because when I saw these YouTube videos coming out that you could start a business growing microgreens, I just knew it was for me at the time. I was already searching for this type of thing and I knew it was for me. So I just instantly dove in. But for a lot of people, I think one of the trickiest parts of starting the business is actually getting started, getting your foot in the door and taking that initial action to actually get started. And by the way, if you are thinking about doing this as a business and you haven't even started growing yet, do that first. Don't even think about the stress of starting a business at this point. Get yourself some supplies and equipment. Feel free to take the 1 tray away challenge, which is really the best way you can learn how to grow these microgreens. And just learn how to grow for yourself and your family without the stress of the business. Not only are you gonna be getting those skills that you need to run your business, right? Because growing the microgreens is a pretty important factor, but you're also gonna be learning how to use the microgreens as you eat them with you and your family, which is then in turn gonna help you to support your customers as you start your business, because if you can teach them how to eat more, you're gonna be able to sell them more product. So I will say that getting started was really easy for me because I knew I was an entrepreneur and I knew I wanted to do something in farming. But for others, it might be hard to get that foot in the door. So just take that action and just start growing. Don't worry about the business side yet. Now, if you actually do get that business off the ground and you decide to go that route, I will let you know right now that starting a business is no easy feat. It takes a lot of dedication, a lot of time put into building those systems out, because there's a lot of hats that you have to wear as an entrepreneur, and each little different hat that you wear, you have to create a system, put that in place, and make sure that your business is running smoothly. It's not just about growing microgreens. It's also about selling microgreens, getting new customers, talking to people, managing your time, implementing these systems, learning how to use technology, social media, email. So there's a lot that goes on with the business, which is just another great reason why you should start with just growing, even if you do want to do this as a business. Number 2, microgreens is a growing industry. As a matter of fact, it's growing rapidly because of the current trends in health and wellness. The industry is actually growing so fast. You might have so many customers coming into your pipeline that you may not even be able to take a vacation for a while. So keep this in mind as you start this business. There's a dedication and commitment involved. And once you start that up, you might have more customers than you even know what to do with. By the way, the microgreens industry is actually going to reach $1.4 billion in revenue by the year 2028, which is resulting in a 12.2% compound annual growth rate. To keep this simple, it's growing very fast and you could have a chunk of that 1.4 billion. Now, because of this rapid growth, with the right tools in your microgreens business, you should be set up to take off. And although this is a great thing, right? That's what everybody wants for their business. I want to make sure you understand what that means for you and your personal life and your time, because growing microgreens, the logistics behind it and the processes that have to happen, Like, your microgreens are always in process. So even though I mentioned before, you don't have to sit there waiting and helping them along, you do have to do some chores to make sure that they're in the right environment on a daily basis. So you're gonna be making trays on a daily basis. You're gonna be watering on a daily basis. You're gonna be harvesting whenever you need to do that harvest for your customers. So because of this, if you have these weekly customers, they're relying on your products, and you may not be able to get away from that business, especially in the beginning when you're still growing and don't have employees to take some of that work off your shoulders. So be aware of this. Starting a business is no easy feat. You may not be able to take those vacations you wanted, and simply finding an employee to cover your farm while you're away may not be as easy as you think. I've went through over 12 employees in just a few short years, and this is actually something I've realized over my time as a business owner, is that working with people is a lot more difficult than working with the plants. The plants are a lot more easy to work with. They don't talk back, they always show up for you, and you know what? That's just the way it is. So keep this in mind as you're running your business. You may be running a solo show for, the first few months or maybe even the first few years. But if you do end up finding that right person for your company, that right employee, it could really be like a dream come true. Because man, when I experienced this for the first time, when I was running my first business and I was always doing all the work, and previously, like, I always had to do my own homework. I always had to take my own tests. And in the business, you're doing all the work at first. But once you get that first employee and they're doing the work, but you're still doing the money, and now you just freed up your time, it is the most magical experience, and it just feels so wicked cool. So this is something that to look forward to as you start your microgreens business and find that perfect employee. Now, number 3, you will get rejected and you will make mistakes. This goes with any business, right? And actually making these mistakes, you may hate making mistakes, but actually I've fallen in love with making mistakes. I think making mistakes is a great way to learn, almost one of the best ways to learn. And if you can learn to laugh at yourself when you do make these mistakes and understand that this is just part of the process and part of the learning curve, then you're gonna have a much better time growing your business, because there's not gonna be as much pressure on you when you do make these mistakes. Now, you'll also be rejected a ton, because not everybody's gonna want these products, and you have to get used to that as well. I'll tell you a little story about some of my first experiences, because when I first started this business, I was told to work with chefs. I quickly found out I didn't want to work with the chefs, and I want to support my local community and their health, bringing it right to their door. So in the beginning, I was walking through my local town selling to chefs, and there was this one chef who was like, dude, if you grow cilantro, this whole town will be all over you. They'll be buying it like crazy. You got to learn how to grow the cilantro microgreen. So cilantro I hadn't been growing at the time, and they're a little bit trickier to grow than like the starter varieties. So I learned how to grow cilantro. It takes me like 2 months. I finally get it down. I bring it back to this chef, and he's just like, oh, I don't want that. And I'm like, what the heck just happened? You were so pumped about the cilantro. The whole town was gonna be buying it. Finally, I learned how to grow it. I bring it back in, and now you don't want it. So it's like some of these experiences you're gonna have to get used to. Even though it stinks, you gotta move forward and learn from them. And my learning experience from that was, don't just do something because somebody else told you to do it. You gotta really hone in on your business model and what it is that you're doing, and making sure that that aligns with your goals and with your mission for your company. Now, another little story, just so you can experience some of my mistakes from the past and live vicariously through that. Hopefully you'll avoid some of these mistakes. When I first learned to grow microgreens, I was taught to use a paper towel on top of the seeds, on top of the soil. And this is completely unnecessary and kind of just silly and a little nasty. I started growing wheatgrass, and eventually, at one point in time, I had these paper towels on the wheatgrass. The wheatgrass grew through the paper towels, pierced the paper towel. Now I had all these paper towel bits throughout the tray, and I lost the tray. It was ruined, and I had to call my customer and say, hey, I'm sorry, I screwed up the wheatgrass and I can't bring it in. Long story short, you will get rejected, you will make mistakes, but don't be discouraged by this. Have fun with it and just use it as a learning experience, because it's just necessary as you're running a business and growing. Now, I know these things may sound negative, but I think it's important that you hear these, because there's all these flashy headlines and flashy pictures online of you can make all this money growing microgreens. And although you can make a ton of money growing microgreens, you can support your family, it is a real business model. I wanna make sure you understand that it's not just this easy thing that you can start up and do. It takes time, it takes energy. You're gonna get rejected. And starting any business is one of the most tremendously hard things that you could possibly do. And starting a microgreens business is no different. It's a little different, all right? We're working with plants. It's really a great vibe, and it can be a little bit easier than these other businesses. But I hope by being transparent with some of my experiences in the past, I hope you were able to get a little bit of a better idea of what growing microgreens for a profit really takes and really entails. So what do do you think? Do you have what it takes to start your own microgreens business? I get tons of messages from people all over the world who want to start a microgreens business but haven't even taken that first step of growing. And I just think that this is so silly. Growing microgreens is totally the first step that anybody needs to learn. It's the most important skill that you need to learn if you're thinking of starting a microgreens business. So I want to invite you to my one tray away challenge, where I give you a kit with everything you need for growing, along with all of the best education that you need to become a master grower very, very quickly. So I'll put a link to this challenge right below this video so you can click on that, and I'll see you in there.